Welcome to Of Sound Mind and Spirit. I'm Shelly.
And I'm Lisa. We're sisters walking together on a journey of faith. We're not perfect.
And we definitely don't have all the answers. We're inviting you to walk with us as we explore ways we can better know and grow in our faith together. Welcome back to another episode from Of Sound Mind and Spirit. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Shelly.
Lisa, I'm so excited. In this episode, we are going to welcome our guest, Caitrin Bennett, who invites us to grow in marital grace by examining our marriage vows through the help of the married saints. It's going to be a fantastic episode. So, hello, Caitrin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Lisa and Shelly.
Oh, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. And I think most of our listeners know Shelly and I have both been married for over 25 years. I think that's right. Let my husband correct me. So we're really always looking for ways to grow in marital grace. And so we are really excited to talk to you about this and see what us and our listeners, what we can learn and how we can continue growing.
Well, I have not had as many years of marriage as you all have, but luckily my book is not Marriage According to Caitrin and Chris Bennett. It is Marriage According to the Catholic Church, which has a lot more years of wisdom to offer.
Very well said. I like that. Because I wouldn't want to sit here and give marriage advice either.
Right.
No, we're imperfect, always striving, right? Always striving.
So, absolutely.
So one of the things I have to tell you, I did get an advance copy of the book, or I guess it's out though, isn't it? It's already won an award, hasn't it?
A year. It's been out a year now. Yeah.
Yes. Just dawned on me that I did see it. It had won some sort of an award.
It was
Catholic Media Association. First place for, I think, pastoral works.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed this. I just have to tell you that right up. I really enjoyed the way you put this together and the messages that it brought forward. And that's really what I want us to talk about today, because I think our listeners will get a lot from it, and they're going to want to run out and get a copy for their own families and, to read with their spouses. So, or by themselves. But I'm curious how this book came about. Well, what inspired you to write it?
I grew up loving the saints, especially as I became more of a young adult. And I had some favorite saints, but I started to realize when I got engaged and married that not a lot of the most popular saints that people know about were married. They were mostly priests and religious or single people, which is amazing also. But I wanted to find some people to follow, some role models in my vocation, which is to marriage. And that research eventually led me to write a book and share that with other people.
I like that, because you're right. There's not a lot of well-known married saints. I don't think there are a ton of married saints to begin with, and then well-known ones. So
right.
I like that you did that, because I think that Shelly and I are our kids are of the age, I guess I should say, that a lot of our friends and family and our kids, they're of the age our kids are not getting married yet, but their friends are getting married, and our friends and family's kids. And so we now find ourselves in I don't want to say give advice, because we just said that, but so I'm interested in this book, because this might be something that as our friends, kids, and our kids start getting engaged in things, that we can be like, it's a good gift maybe for them.
I think so. I think it's a great gift for a newly engaged couple, ideally, so they have time to learn about the vows they're going to take and find some married saint friends to pray to before they get married. But it could be a wedding gift also, for sure. And it can benefit, hopefully, people who have been married for 50 years as well.
Mm-hmm. Caitrin, one of the things I really like is that you examine the marriage vows individually throughout each. And I have to tell you, when I first started reading this, I hadn't really thought about my marriage vows, the formality of it. And you made me run back, and I've recently digitized a lot of our old VHS, and my wedding is now digitized. And so I watched the part with my vows. And aside from realizing, oh my gosh, how young I was, ours were slightly different from the ones that you have in the book. Not greatly, but you have a beautiful page in here that actually lists the Catholic marriage vows.
Right.
And I just want to kind of touch them real quick for people maybe who haven't heard their own in a while or thought about it. That you are asked, have you come here to enter into marriage without coercion, freely and wholeheartedly? Are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live? Are you prepared to accept children lovingly from God and to bring them up according to the law of Christ and his church? And since it is your intention, you declare, and then it goes into what we usually think of. I take you to have and to hold from this day forward for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. And it's so beautiful because I hadn't thought of that. So.
I hadn't at first either. When I started writing the book, I was kind of making each chapter, which each chapter is a biography of a saint or a couple that are both saints. And I was kind of pulling my own arbitrary idea from their biography, like, oh, this seems like a good example of being honest with your spouse. And it was a couple months into writing the books, I already had several chapters written before it kind of came to me in prayer, like, don't make this up. You know, the church already has these vows for you, and they're comprehensive. That's all there. Don't try to make this up on your, at the time, 3 years of marriage, you know? And then it all started falling into place really well. Like, this saint matched perfectly that I was already researching with this vow. And, oh, okay, God, I see what you did there.
I love the way he comes in. So yeah. How did you go about selecting the saints? And then tell us about how you matched them up with the vows.
Like I said, I feel like I didn't really do that. I feel like God kind of did that. I had pretty much already selected the 8 main saints. Maybe I had 10 probably, and then I narrowed it down to 8 later, that there was a lot of information available about them, and I felt very drawn to them, or I thought that people already knew about certain ones, like Saint Gianna Mala, awesome saint, but a lot of people know about her already, so I did not include her in my book, for example. So I already had a lot of research about 8 or 10 saints, and then it kind of came to me that I should use the vows, and there were 8 of them, and so then I kind of matched those together so that if you want to learn about how to love your spouse more faithfully, that matches with the biography of St. Thomas More, who I love because he was so faithful to his family, but also in his life he was really faithful to the teaching of the church, to the point where he was willing to be beheaded instead of declaring that marriage was not, valid for the king, that his first marriage was not valid, or that the Pope couldn't be the head of the church in England. That's how faithful he was to go to his death. So those matched really well.
And of the 8, I'm going to ask you a really hard question. Which saint was your favorite?
The one I like to talk about the most to get people excited about the book is the couple from Rwanda. Their last name is Rugamba, which can be confusing, like Rwanda and Rugamba. Those sound so similar. I don't know if you read that chapter, but I love it because they're by far the most recent couple. They died in the genocide in Rwanda in 1994, so they were still alive when I was born. And they have a really amazing story of conversion for the husband, whose name was Cyprian, that he was very against Christianity, the faith of his wife, and he also became extremely physically ill as well as being spiritually ill. And his wife Daphra, she just prayed for him, took their kids to mass, and kept fighting the good fight, and he did convert completely, and he was healed miraculously of his illness. And then together they were able to spend the last few years of their life really working for peace in their country, which was obviously so needed at that time. And ultimately they gave their lives for that. But it showed how much healing can happen in a marriage when you let God into it. And I really loved their story. Plus, it's a super personal chapter because I was able to interview one of their really close friends, which is obviously not true for people like St. Monica, who lived so long ago. So that makes it a really different chapter.
Yeah, I was fascinated reading that chapter because I'd never heard of them. And so often when we talk about the Rwandan genocide, the most known Catholic is probably Immaculate.
Yeah.
And I have friends that they go every time she's in anywhere near our area within maybe a 4-hour drive, they go see her and listen to her speak and talk. And they've read all of her books. So that one really attracted me, and especially that they were killed and died, but they had children who did survive.
Yes, they had 10 children, 9 together, and then one the husband actually had out of wedlock before he had his conversion experience, but his wife adopted that child also. A few of those children, maybe like 3, were already adults living out of the house, and one other was there and actually was wounded but didn't die. And then the parents and I think 6 of their children were killed together that morning.
Yeah. And I love how you tied that in with the vow of in sickness and in health.
Yeah.
Yeah. It came out really beautiful.
Yeah. Like I said, he was spiritually ill, and then you could see on the surface more that he was physically ill, and she prayed for him through all of that. And I really, for me, connected back to Jesus healed people physically of illnesses and blindness. But after all of those healings, he was always interested in their healing to their community also, especially, if you were healed from leprosy, you also were able to rejoin your community that you were not part of before because of your leprosy. And that's even more important than the physical healing from the leprosy, was to like put that connection back together with your community, reinstate that connection. And that's in marriage super important too, that when we've wounded each other as spouses, we have to restore that intimacy that we have. So we might not think that we're ill physically, but in sickness and health can also mean restoring our intimacy as spouses.
Mm-hmm. And I want to tell Lisa, because I don't know if she knows this, but in each of the chapters, in addition to the brief biography, you give real practical hands-on advice or tips that people can use, can take and put into practice to strengthen that marriage vow. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
That was to help make the book a better tool for use in a small group setting of couples that are preparing for marriage or trying to strengthen their current marriages, or even like for a priest to use with a couple in pre-Cana. I thought that would make it a helpful resource, that there are questions there that you can reflect on in your own marriage, and then kind of action bullet points of how can I work on this particular vow in my marriage. And then there's also a prayer at the end of each chapter, often written by that saint or that couple, or it's part of their canonization cause, because some of these people are not fully canonized saints yet. Like the Rwandan couple, they're only servants of God. So that's pretty early on in the process.
Right. And you had a really nice chapter at the beginning, or a preface, that explained for those people who, like me some time ago, I couldn't get around, like, what does it mean that are they saints if they're blessed? Are they saints only if they're canonized? Or what does that mean, servant of God versus venerable? And I love that you have that in the beginning, just to kind of a reference point. So
yes. Well, I believe there's a lot more married people in heaven than we fully recognize on earth. A saint is just anybody who is in heaven, a holy person who's died and gone to heaven with God. So I hope there are millions and millions of married saints. We just haven't canonized but a few of them.
I feel that in the last couple of decades, there's been more of an importance in looking for married couples to canonize, to find them and hold them up. Because as you mentioned, I don't know what the percentage is of named saints that are religious, that were priests or religious or single people, but it is a very high percentage versus the ones who were married. And I think the Martins, Louis and Zelly, were the first married couple that were canonized together.
Yes,
believe. And
I
do feel that they're looking for more examples of married couples who lived out their vows in the family and ways to help us as examples. How do we face the trials of living out our vocation in marriage? How do we face living a holy family and in modern times? And so I feel like they're really doing a good job of looking for those couples. And that's one of the things that really interested me about your book, because it's just there's not that common. It's not out there as much to kind of help us in the trenches of our domestic, I'll call it, say, domestic church, which I know isn't not everyone knows what that means, but living that holiness in your household. Shelly always gives me grief for using that phrase, because it's a churchy phrase, that not everyone knows what it means.
I like domestic church. I use that.
Yeah. But I like the example. And Louis and Zelly Martin, of course, I think are a lot of people's, I won't say favorites, but like high up there, for as that example. But not all of us are going to have 5 girls that became religious, and one is a saint and one is on her, I believe she's on her way on the path.
Yeah, Leonie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Martins are my first chapter in the book. So you at least get a couple that you've probably heard of before, and then maybe some that are newer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What you said about the Martins being the first to be canonized, I was thinking, no, I know I read someone else another couple were the first to be beatified. Yes. And that was the Quattrochis.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And so they were the first couple to be beatified together October 21st, 2001. Mm-hmm. But they're still blesseds. So I guess
that could be
we're
pretty
still
soon.
waiting for a miracle. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's actually a really long process to get people through, which is part of the reason why there aren't that many married saints, because not as many people often know you as a married couple,
right,
compared to if you were a parish priest and you have affected the lives of thousands of people, or also if you're a religious, your religious order, has a really vested interest in getting you canonized because that looks good for their order. But that isn't the case for married people either. So that kind of plays into it as well.
And a lot of times it's the surviving spouse or the kids who are really pushing forward the cause for one of their parents. And so I like the idea. I actually think it'll be interesting. Like you mentioned, Gianna Mola, she was the doctor, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've read some about her, and I would be interested to know, she was canonized. I think her husband was still alive when she was canonized. And so it'll be interesting to see if they go back, and maybe he has a cause that'll be opened and you'll have more saints. Because I do believe that there is something in a marriage that if you can help each other, you can really strengthen each other's spirituality and beyond that path to holiness together. And that's
absolutely
a lot harder, I guess, done than said. But I mean, that's what we're called to do, right? Is to help support each other and one day live eternal life in heaven together, with Christ. So help our spouses and help our children get there.
It's a big calling. That's the most important thing we're ever going to do. And for some of those saints, it may be after they've passed away that it really affects their spouse or their children. Mm-hmm. Like I know we have our brand new saint, Carlo Acutis from Italy. His parents weren't particularly religious, but I have to imagine it really affected their lives to watch their small child or teenager go to mass every single day and suffer through the illness that he went through. And maybe they'll be saints one day, even if it was their son before them that was religious. So
that is interesting to think about, isn't it? That the child could go first and draw you closer. Which I've been reading a diary about Saint Elizabeth or maybe she's a blessed.
Lucia.
I can't remember. Yeah, Lucia.
Yeah.
Yes, and how after she passed, leaving her diary, her husband read it, and he was a huge atheist, and her diary and what she wrote about how she prayed for him and how she lived her faith out quietly led to his conversion. And then he actually became a priest after she passed.
I actually didn't know that. I've read that book also, but I didn't know about her husband.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and then he was the one who's pushed for her cause. So it's really interesting that we just don't know in our marriages always exactly the effect we're going to have on one another. So this idea of this book really, again, I haven't read it, to be candid, but it really excites me in that, I don't know, the older I get, the more I kind of think about how my husband and I are called to witness to one another.
Yes, absolutely. And to your children also.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Martins always said, like, we want to see the tree of our family reunited in heaven, you know, and they even had branches of their tree that, you know, where they had children die very young. Mm-hmm. So that was especially poignant for them to be with those children again.
Mm-hmm.
Caitrin, another theme in the book is the sacramental grace of marriage. Can you tell us and our listeners, what is sacramental grace and how does it affect the marriage?
So sacramental grace is special graces that come with any of the sacraments that help you to do whatever that sacrament is supposed to accomplish. So in baptism, we get the graces to be washed clean of original sin and to live out our faith. And then that's completed in confirmation. The Holy Spirit gives us graces to be bold and proclaim our faith as adults, that type of thing. In marriage, we need specific graces to walk that path to the end, to heaven. Especially for me, I'm often calling on the grace of the sacrament of marriage to renew patience in myself if I'm feeling impatient with my husband. And one thing that I learned from researching for this book, reading all the documents of the church, is this is not a one-time thing. Even though marriage isn't like confession or the Eucharist where you can go often, you can still every day or many times a day call on the grace from that day that you did get married to be renewed in you, because God's grace is new every morning if we ask for it, and God loves to give good gifts to his children.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, my husband and I are celebrating 30 years in a few months.
That's
and
so
we're kind of excited. And somebody asked us once, are you going to renew your vows? And I was like, no, I don't really see the point in renewing the vows, but we were in Galveston. We got married in Galveston, and we were there about a month ago. And we got the opportunity to go back to Mass at the church where we were married. Nice. And it just happened that there was a young priest there, and a couple had come in, and they were in the front row reserved, and it was their 50th wedding anniversary. So at the end, his whole homily was about marriage. Aww. And at the end of the Mass, he had them come forward, and we held up our hands, and he gave them a special marriage blessing. And I was just thinking, what a beautiful gift, a little bit of God's grace there, that we just happened to be there on that day at that Mass, and we're able to hold hands with each other while in the church where we were married, while that was happening. And it was one of those special little moments. So I just thought of that as you were talking about calling on that marriage, that sacramental grace that we receive in marriage. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've taken the same vows to each other that couple took to each other. That's kind of the beautiful part about the church giving us those vows, is we don't write our own. We all can stand and witness to what each new married couple is promising, because that's what we also promise to each other. And we know that it's all there. We're not missing anything that's necessary for the covenant in those vows.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah. So who do you recommend to read the book?
Ideally, it would be people who are discerning marriage together, already engaged, that they still have a lot of time to know what they're going to get into and what they're promising each other in that sacrament. And I think it's a fairly good resource for preparing for marriage too. to have all of these saints that you can emulate and you can ask for their intercession for your coming marriage. But I hope that people who are already married can also benefit from it, because as we've all said, we kind of forgot the vows that we took. We had to look them back up again. I know I had to when I was writing the book, and I've had lots of people who've been married 2 years or 20 or 50 years tell me, I forgot about that, and now I want to look back into that and recommit to those vows. So it's for all married people, or for especially priests that work with married people.
Yeah, I could actually see priests using this, or even sponsor couples with all of your helpful tips. I really did like the practical ways that we can utilize the sacraments, like the gift of reconciliation, or I forget what some of the other ones were, but you had them in here so beautifully, before you start an argument with your spouse, consider whether this is actually a big deal or just a small complaint. If it's small, try to drop it and offer it up to God. If it's larger, find an appropriate time to talk and try to come calmly to the conversation.
Right. That's
I think it's great advice.
Yeah. I like that.
But once you know something like this, once you've read it and you put it in your mind, the next time you get into a bicker and you start to do that response, and I'm hoping my husband's not listening to me about this, then maybe you're like, okay, wait, count to 10, calm down. How big is this? This is not that big a deal. Let it go. Let it go. Okay. I love him more than I am wanting to bicker about this particular thing.
Upset about the dishes.
Thank you.
Yes. And it always helps me to remember that for everything that I want to bicker with him about, I'm sure there have been 5 things that he wanted to bring up to me and he dropped it. And so I can drop it too.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that there's a lot of books and there's a huge focus on maybe reading about parenting, right? How do you potty train? How do you sleep train? Whatever the current thing is going on right now. And I know it is with teenagers and all stages of parenthood, but how often do we say, how do I become a better spouse? How do I live out a better marriage? So this is, I really encourage all of our listeners to pick up the book, read it yourselves, or maybe gift it to your marriage prep at your parish. If you're a sponsor couple, things like that. Just take a moment, and we could all stand to kind of, you don't have to go renew your vows in that way, but to read the book and renew them to each other. And
to know what they mean. Some of them seem a little abstract. So I try to break them down more. Like Shelly was saying, try to give you ways that you can work on them, because we can all work on all of them. Even, my husband and I are in our mid-30s. We're not thinking really about till death do us part yet, but we should be. It's still part of our marriage right now, because marriage is always an end game situation. Like, we're always looking, what is the end of this is for me to help him get to heaven and him to help me get to heaven. So how can I do that today? Because we are going to die. This is till death do us part, and we want to be in heaven at the end of it. So there are ways that we can live out that vow, even though we're young and hopefully not close to actually dying.
Yeah.
Caitrin, where can people find your book? Where can they find you online?
So my book is published by Marian Press. So their website is shopmercy.org. And I think it's .com, shopmercy.com. It must be. And I am on Substack as Caitrin Bennett as well. And I'm on Catholic Mom with both of you. We all write articles there. So you can find some other book reviews and stuff I've done there.
Mm-hmm. And it is .org. I just glanced at it. It's Shop Mercy.
I said that first, and then I was like, that doesn't sound right. And it is on Amazon too, and there's an ebook as well now that's available.
Yeah, no, this is beautiful. This is one you're going to want to keep like on the shelf so you can mark in it. I found myself underlining different parts, and I love that in the beginning you actually invite us. Where was it? You have a how to use this book section. And I'll find it in a second.
I think I did write.
And it says,
please write in here.
right, that it was that as you read the biography, picture yourself meeting a new friend. And then when you read the part about the marriage vow, then think back on the biography and track the vow through that saint's life, and then start, did they struggle with it? How did they grow in it? How do we struggle with it? How do we grow in it? And so it's a very practical book. And that's what I think I really love about it. And there were a few saints in here I'd not ever heard of. I mean, obviously I've heard of Saint Monica. And I thought your final chapter on Saints Mary and Joseph and kind of tying all those together was just beautiful. So,
I felt like it wasn't fair to give Mary and Joseph just one vow. They can be a review of all of them, because that's the ultimate example of married couple is the Holy Family.
Yeah, and it was a very nice tie off at the end there. So I don't know. I'm a fan. What can I say?
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I hope some of your listeners enjoy it and give it as gifts to engaged and married couples.
I hope so too. All right, Shelly, you have 2 questions you ask all of our guests. Would you like?
Well, you could have asked it.
No, you always do it, so I'm letting you do it.
Okay, Caitrin. Now, I did ask before, because Lisa and I are sisters, biological sisters, and we always tell stories about each other. We ask and invite all of our guests to share with our listeners a sister story of their own, but you have it with a little twist. So I'm wanting you to tell our listeners this one.
Yeah, I actually don't have a sister, and I wanted a sister my whole life. Whenever my mom would say, write your Christmas list, the first thing at the top of the list was always baby sister. And I never had a sister. I have 2 little brothers instead, but I kept that desire in my heart, and I have a daughter and 2 sons, and I just found out 5 weeks ago that I am expecting another girl. Yeah. So my daughter will have the sister that I never got to have, and that baby will be here hopefully end of January or early February. And then they can share their sister stories one day.
How big will the age gap be between the 2 girls?
Almost 9 years. So it's a while. How far apart are you 2?
We're 2.5.
Yeah. But
you wouldn't want to say.
No, I was like, which one? No, and my girls are 3 years apart, but I have a surprise baby, and so my girls are 9 and 12 years apart from their brother, and it's a great relationship. And one of the things that people told me when I was pregnant, and I said, "Oh, I'm worried about this age gap." Everybody told me stories about how either they were the baby with these older siblings or they were the oldest with this younger sibling, and what a wonderful bond of not just sibling, but friendship they had with each other. And so it's going to be beautiful. I just know that for you.
That's really good to hear. Yeah. And she's definitely excited. I think she'll be really helpful when the baby's little. And then one day when they're adults, I'm sure they'll be best friends.
Sure. Yes.
They will. Yeah. Okay. And our second question is, what saint is currently walking with you at this particular stage in your life?
I think I mentioned briefly earlier that I love St. Thomas More. He is in my book for that faithful chapter. And I named my homeschool after him. I homeschool my 3 kids so far. And the reason I chose him as the patron saint of my homeschool is, first of all, he was brilliant. He was a scholar. He was a writer. And he was always learning more. So that's really good for the education part, but also because he was such a good dad. He was so attached to his children, especially his oldest daughter. And he wrote them all letters, like handwritten letters every single day if he couldn't be home. So it helps me remember in my homeschool, which takes up most of my day right now. It's always on my mind that homeschooling is about connection over the education and the textbooks and everything that comes secondary. So I pray for his intercession to help me be really connected to my children and educate them after I love them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has said St. Thomas More, so I like that. And
it surprised me that writing this book, I most connected with a man,
Yeah, that's true.
The whole in the book, and I love them too, but he has just spoken to me and befriended me.
That's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, we always say they find you, they pursue you a lot of times. You don't always go looking for them. They you realize they're chasing you, and there's usually
I definitely felt that. Yes. He's also really funny. If you ever read anything that he wrote, he's a funny guy.
I didn't know that. That'll be interesting. Now I have to look him up.
Yeah.
All right. I thank you so much for being here, Caitrin. We've really enjoyed this conversation, and we really think that our dear listeners will have a lot to learn, and hopefully go get your book. And if they're married, use it to really benefit and bless their marriage. And if they're not married, pass that gift on to someone else they know who's engaged or hoping to get married soon. If you are hearing this message in the podcast, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate you listening. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to take a moment and leave us a review on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Your feedback helps us grow and bring you even better content. You can stay connected with us and join the conversation on Instagram or Facebook at Sound Mind and Spirit. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming out next. And remember, we release new episodes on Thursdays. So we will see you next Thursday. All right. Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me again.